and stand in the face of danger, driven not by the desire for recognition, but by their unwavering dedication to the ideals of freedom, peace, and security. In honor of Veterans Day, we dedicate this episode to the courageous men of C Company, 1st Battalion, 160th of the U.S. Army. Chief Warrant Officer 3, Dwyer. Chief Warrant Officer 2, Barnes. Staff Sergeant Groan, Sergeant Southard, and Sergeant Wolf. These men made the ultimate sacrifice when their MH-60 went down on mission on November 10th, 2023. As we remember their sacrifice, we reflect not only on what they gave, but on what we gain through their service. In their courage, we find hope. In their dedication, we find strength. Today, we honor their bravery, their camaraderie, and their unwavering commitment. Though they are no longer with us, their spirit endures, and every sunrise, every freedom we hold dear, and every flag that waves in the greatest country the world has ever known.
Welcome to Two Tough Nuts. Tonight is our Veterans Day podcast episode, and I know for me personally it's a big deal because my grandfather served in World War II as a Marine. My dad served in the Army for 30 years, and part of that time was in special operations and combat zones, and my brother served in the Marine Corps. He's currently active duty Army in special operations, so it's an honor to be a part of this nation as a family of veterans. I'm also a veteran. I was in the Navy, and Chance and I wouldn't have the opportunity to do a show like this or to own the businesses we have if it wasn't for the brave men and women that have served their country. So we appreciate you guys, and tonight we're honored to bring on my friend and fellow co-worker, Scott Quinn. Scott served in the United States Marine Corps as a sergeant and now currently is a lieutenant with the local police department. So Scott, glad to have you on, man. Appreciate you.
Thank you so much. And it's an honor to be asked to be on the podcast, especially with Veterans Day and whatnot, and seeing all the pictures from the different guys that I served with from back in the day, and other Marines that I've met with living here in Franklin, and some of the stuff that they went through. So it's pretty awesome group that we have, a family to connect with. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Of course.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's awesome to have you.
Thank you.
So let's kind of jump right in, man. So kind of in that theme, like tell us about how you came up. Obviously, we know now you're a lieutenant of the Franklin Police Department, which is awesome.
Yeah.
How did that journey come about?
It's been a hell of a ride, I'll tell you that. So I grew up in Michigan, in a city outside of Flint, and had the typical childhood, played sports, had a sister, she was into sports. Family was very involved in the community. And then when I turned 17, my parents got a divorce. And I was kind of trying to figure out life. You know what I mean? And I really didn't know what I wanted to do, so I went to community college, went down that route, and I did that for a whole semester, believe it or not. And I realized that I needed to get out of town. And a buddy of mine bet me $40 that I wouldn't join the Marines. So $40 was the ticket. I said, yeah, I'll do it for $40. Now, mind you, this is in 2000, so we haven't had 9/11 yet and any of that. So I went to the recruiter and I took a buddy of mine, and we ended up joining together in the buddy program. So we go to boot camp in January of 2001. We go to San Diego, and as soon as we get there, we split up. So I lost my buddy immediately. I had to make some new buddies. But after that, I was active duty, so I got to see a lot of the country, and I have a different outlook because I was in during 9/11, so I got to experience 9/11 from that standpoint of what the hell just happened. Our lives are all about to change. I'm clearly not going to Costa Rica surfing for Christmas anymore, like my recruiter told me I could. We're about to go to war, pretty much. So at that point in time, I was stationed in New Orleans, which was a rarity for an active duty Marine. And while I was there, I ended up getting orders to Japan. So at this point, Iraq's going on, Afghanistan's going on. and I arrived to 3rd Marine Division, and I get sent to the northernmost base on the island of Okinawa called Camp Schwab, where we are like a higher headquarters for different battalions that come to train in Japan. The problem was we're at war, so nobody's coming to Japan to train. So we really didn't have a whole lot to do. So I volunteered to go to Afghanistan with 3rd Marine Recon. And to back that story up a little bit, I was in logistics. So I didn't know anything that they knew. But I figured, what the hell, I'll go with them and see what we can get into. So I end up in Tampa, in Marcent. Then they told me my orders were canceled and I wasn't going to Afghanistan anymore. So I was like, well, I can't go back to Japan. I need to do something. So I convinced them to send me to Iraq with a couple other Marines that we were just individual augments. So we ended up in Camp Slayer, Iraq, which is right outside of Baghdad International. So it's like an intel base right there. And I had no idea what I was getting into. So our first night there, we ended up getting mortared, and we were so tired that we slept right through it. We had no idea that was even happening.
Wow.
Yeah. We woke up to some chaos. So they ended up saying, hey, you guys are Marines. We're going to pair you up with multinational forces, and you guys will just figure it out. And I was thinking, all right, whatever. So on my team, it was a Navy SEAL, a Special Forces guy from the Army, and some Pennsylvania National Guardsmen.
Wow.
And then
Yeah.
somebody that joined for $40 on a dare.
Yeah, exactly.
From logistics.
I know, from logistics. So I had a lot to learn, and I had to learn it quick because
Wow.
what we were doing over there wasn't your standard jump in the Humvee, let's go roll around Baghdad and we'll do a couple operations. We were doing some stuff that was a little more in depth. So I finished that and I get out of the Marine Corps and I really didn't know what I was going to do. And I was unemployed for 9 months. I couldn't find a job. Nobody would hire me. Here I am thinking I'm in the Marines. I have a top secret clearance. I should get a job, no problem. But I couldn't. So I ended up in Mississippi, of all places, with my wife at the time. And she was in the Air Force. So talk about a fish out of water. A guy from Michigan ended up in Mississippi. But while I was there,
Slightly different.
yeah, to tell you, it was a culture shock. So when I was there, we had to get a background check to get an apartment, to get a lease. So when I went there to the police department there, they said, hey, we're hiring. And I said, well, hell, I need a job, so I'll apply. So out of everybody that applied, it was just me and one other dude that got hired. I know, right? It's like the story of my life. Fucking just wing it.
Yeah.
So they tell me, hey, come to work on Tuesday. Come in on Tuesday, we'll swear you in, we'll get you ready. So, all right, cool. So I get sworn in, I come to work Wednesday morning, and the chief says, hey, can you go to the police academy? I said, sure, why not? I've been working out for the last 9 months. He said, all right, you got to be there by 12 o'clock, and you got to take a PT test. I was like, all right, and then I'll come home. He goes, no, you're going to be in the police academy. I said, well, I got to call my wife and let her know. So I called her, and she didn't answer her phone. So I go to this police academy that's like 2 hours away from where I live, in a city I've never been to. I went to Tupelo. I show up, I do the PT test, and they're like, all right, you're in. I said, all right, what's next? And they said, start doing push-ups. You got to pay for the last 2 days that you missed.
Oh, come on.
Yeah. So I went into everything late, pretty much.
Yeah.
So I show
What
up
was the
late
PT
to,
test? Hang on,
Yeah.
Scott. What was the PT test? I'm curious.
Oh, gosh. they made me do some push-ups. I did some sit-ups, sit and reach. I had to run a mile and a half.
So it was the Cooper protocol, it sounds like.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Except there, I said, all right, where am I running to? And the guy said, just run and we'll tell you when to turn around. So I just ran. Kind of like,
I was running.
yes. I just ran and ran and ran. And then he goes, all right, turn around. And then I finished and he goes, all right, you pass. I don't even know what my time was.
It turns out they didn't either.
Yeah, that's what's
No. So here I am. I become a cop in Mississippi. and I have no idea the culture. I can't understand what the people are saying.
Yeah.
I had a lot to learn really quick. So while I'm there, I ended up getting a divorce, realized we were better off friends than actually being married. And my chief there came up here to Franklin, Tennessee to be a deputy chief. So he emailed a couple of us and he said, hey, this is much better. Come up here. So I said, what the hell? I might as well. So I arrived in Franklin in May of 2007.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I
So-
met Steve probably what? Shoot, in probably 2008?
I think we met in the tail end of 2007 because
Yeah.
I got hired on in 08, so it was probably right after you got there.
Yeah. I wasn't here
Maybe
very
like a
long.
year. Yeah, because I know. I think it was that winter of 07, I believe.
That makes sense.
Because I moved back to Middle Tennessee in 2007. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So here we are. We're in Franklin.
Wait,
I meet Steve.
you didn't tell the best story though from your time in Mississippi, man.
When my car got stolen?
Yeah, dude, you can't leave that out. You gotta tell us that. You gotta tell us
Your
that.
cop shop got stolen?
Oh, it got stolen, all right. I was so mad. All right, so here I am. So we don't have our own cars. We have to hotbox them. So my lieutenant tosses me the keys, and a fight comes out in a park just behind the precinct. And I'm like, somebody else, please go to this. I don't feel like going to this, but nobody would say anything. So I'm like, damn it, I gotta go. So I pull up, and there's got to be like 300 people in this park. And when I pull up, I leave the car running for the camera to go, but the keys are still in it, and it's the only set I have, so I can't lock the doors. So I found these two girls that I knew from the projects, and I said, "Hey, don't let anybody take my car." And they called me Quincy. So they're like, "All right, Quincy." So I'm going to break up this fight, and I look back, and I'm like, why the hell is the cop driving over all these bushes, like through this basketball court towards everybody? So I take another look, I'm like, holy shit, that's my car. So I get on the radio and I say, someone's stealing my car. And I'm chasing my car through the park as they're trying to run over people.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Most police officers learn how to de-escalate.
It was way past then. So then she rams it into a fence.
Oh man.
Yeah. So then I got her out of the car. Huh?
These are the two that were watching it for you?
Yes. Yes. I said, so anyway, so I get her out, and she's like, hell yeah, I was trying to run those bitches over. They were fighting me. I didn't realize she was in the fight.
Oh,
So-
no.
My lieutenant showed up, and he goes, get back in your car. You got to work the rest of your shift. I never even went to court on that. Mm-hmm.
What town was this in Mississippi?
It was in Columbus.
Okay.
Yeah. I made the
did you
cover of the
leave that part out of
newspaper
your-
that night.
Did you leave that out of your interview when you came to Franklin?
No, because they brought it up. They said, have you ever had anything stolen? And I said, no, I haven't. And they were like, are you sure? And I said, not that I remember. I guess I did.
I remember. I blacked out. I don't remember that night.
Yeah, that night's in the past. I never went to court. I was just
man.
glad they didn't throw all my stuff out of the car.
No kidding, man. Or take something like a shotgun out or something.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
wild.
Oh, man.
Well, I
Now
didn't
you
know
go
it was a
back to
shotgun.
Now you go back
But
to
here I
time
am.
you moved here.
So then I get to Franklin, and I know absolutely nobody. But I just started meeting people and just kind of figured my way around here. But I had to prove myself because everybody thought that I was here because of the chief, which in a sense, yeah, he told me about it, but I had to earn my own way. I had to prove to everybody that I didn't just get hired because they knew me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I liked the SWAT and the narcotics and stuff, so I got into all that. And I did narcotics. Well, I didn't narcotics. I should rephrase that. I was on SWAT for, I think, 6 years, 5.5, 6 years. And while I was doing that, I moved into a narcotics detective role. So when I was doing that, I realized that I was done with SWAT, and I had to give that up to allow other people a chance to be a member of the team. And that's something that I want to share, is that there's a lot of power in knowing when you're done, and you're okay and content with saying, you know, I'm done with this. It's time to move on for the next thing. So
Yeah, that's really sound advice.
yeah, and if you hold on too long, you're going to miss opportunities.
So I want to come back to that, but like one of the things that I want to kind of dig into, Scott, is let's go back to the year 2000, and you're kind of floundering. You don't know what to do. Community college not for you. Outside of $40, I mean, was there any thought process or anything going on?
No. $40,
Just like,
pay me.
It's something. That's so funny, man. I wonder, like, it's like a personality thing. I know a few Marines that joined the Marines on a whim. Like, they just, like,
Yeah.
I was bored, I walked in and I just joined.
Right.
Did you meet a lot of people like that?
You know, I didn't. When I went through the recruiters, there was a lot of guys that were diehards, and that's what they always wanted to do, and they were all in. And I was like, I didn't know what to expect, because I didn't do any research. I didn't look at any other branches. I just went straight to that recruiter and said, what can you guys offer me? And it sounded good to me.
Did you have any family history in the military? Like, was anyone in your family prior?
You know, my dad's dad, he was in the Navy, but he died of brain cancer at like 49, I believe. So I never met him. And then my mom's dad, he was in the 82nd Airborne, and he was in D-Day. So he was part of the guys that parachuted in. He got shot up pretty good. But it's wild to look back, because they had a strained relationship, my mom and her father. And I think it's due to PTSD.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Because he was never treated for it. So he was probably a pretty tough man to live with.
Yeah.
And it was never something anybody talked about. So
Gotcha.
yeah, that was the back. And my dad was in the Army, but he was in during Vietnam, but he never deployed to Vietnam because his dad had the brain cancer.
Okay.
So they kept him stateside with that, and I'm not sure why, but fortunately he didn't go to Vietnam.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so now, like, you're in, and then 9/11 happens. I mean, they write movies about this stuff with, you know,
Yeah.
folks.
It was wild. So
freshly joined. What was your experience like with that?
So the base we were at, this was what was wild. We were in New Orleans at what's called Mar Res. So it's the Marine Forces Reserve Higher Headquarters. And new Marines never get this duty station. And somehow I got it.
Is there a reason for that?
I don't know. I guess they just had an opening and they needed a spot filled. And the recruiter placed a 20-year-old in New Orleans. How crazy is that?
Yeah, that's a hell of a place to be with.
Yeah.
with spendable cash and
Yeah, not good.
No.
So I remember that morning, because we lived on the what's called the West Bank, and then we would take little ferries over to the 9th Ward where we worked.
Yeah.
And when we were in there, I just remember seeing colonels running all over the place. I'm thinking, that's not normal. Colonels don't typically run. And next thing you know, they're like, you guys all need to get in here and see the TV. And they locked the whole place down. And the only thing we could get was like Hooters chicken wings is what I remember. That's what they brought us. And I'm thinking, I don't even like damn chicken wings. And that's all you're going to feed
Hooters
me?
girls bring them, or did somebody else?
Hell no. Probably somebody from the streets in New Orleans. Yeah. So then after that, because of my top secret clearance, and they needed to start spinning up some reserve units to kind of backfill, I got to travel all over the United States to these units to make sure they were deployable. So I got to go to like ground zero like shortly after it happened. There's a
Wow.
big Reserve Marine Corps unit in Brooklyn. It's a communications unit. So I was in Brooklyn, and they were showing me where like debris from the Twin Towers landed all the way over there.
Wow.
So it was just incredible.
Unreal.
We went to the Pentagon where that got hit. So I got to see a lot of wild stuff looking back in history.
What rank were you at this time?
I was the Lance Corporal.
Lance Corporal. I'll say you're 20, you probably be a sergeant. Yeah.
Yeah, Lance
That's a lot of
Corporal.
responsibility.
Oh, God, yeah. Because I'm traveling with top secret like documents that I really don't even know what the hell they mean. I just know I got to deliver them to people.
Did you do really good in boot camp? Were you like top performer?
I had a 281 PT score.
That's good, man.
But really, boot camp didn't matter because you were going to combat training afterwards.
Right. Yeah. True.
Yeah, so boot camp, then combat training, that was like 6 weeks. And then you go to your basic school. So I did everything in California, and then I flew to Lejeune for my basic school.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, so I got to see Jacksonville and Oceanside.
Yeah.
Two beautiful places.
I was gonna say.
Yeah.
So horrible.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Jacksonville.
So it's interesting to me because it seems like you have, whether by accident or design or both, you seem to put yourself in a position of both responsibility and probably danger. Do you recognize yourself like that in yourself?
I think it's my, when I was young, well, when I say I was younger, like probably like 10 years ago, I really craved the adrenaline rush. I enjoyed
So
that.
you always had this.
Oh, yeah. Because I would just do stuff. So, like, here's a good example. I'm a brand new cop. I don't even know how to talk on the radio yet, right? I'm kind of fearful of talking on the radio because I'm going to sound dumb or something, right? So we get at this dude. He killed a couple people in the neighboring town in Mississippi, and he barricades himself in our city in a house. I don't even have any training. I just know I'm a Marine and I should be able to handle this. So I go up there and try to go in the entry team with the guys. I don't even have their equipment. You know what that got me? I got sent to the gas station to get coffee for everybody.
Oh, for sure.
But I was like, hell, I can do it. I know how to do entries. I did it in Baghdad.
Yeah.
It's just in your blood, though. Like when you were a
Yeah.
kid, were you always seeking out adventures or like?
Oh, God, no.
troublemaker? No.
No, I wouldn't say that. I was too fearful of my dad. He'd whoop my ass if I got in too much trouble.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like the adrenaline rush. I like the thrill. And then for some reason it just hit me one day and I was like, all right. When I knew I didn't want to be the point man on SWAT and I was okay with being perimeter, that's when I knew it was time to give it up.
You know, it's interesting. I spoke with a pilot. He was an Army helicopter pilot, and he had just retired. And one of the things he said was, because I asked him, I said, like, what made you retire? You've been in, you've had a career with them forever. And he said, I stopped being afraid of the machine.
Yeah.
And I said, what's that? Like, what does that mean? You should be comfortable with the machine. And he said, no, he's like, these machines are like, everything on them is designed to maim and kill. And he said, the second you get too comfortable, he said, I had a mentor that told me that. The second you get too comfortable, you should call it a day, because that's when mistakes start happening. Is it akin to that, like how you were feeling?
I would say, so as the point man on the SWAT team, and you can ask any of the guys I was on the team with, I hated training. Absolutely hated it. I would ask our boss and say, all right, is it time to go? I was kind of like Allen Iverson. Like, we're talking about practice.
Yeah.
I want to do the missions. That's what I always crave. Let's just do the missions. And fortunately, I made a lot of right and good decisions on those missions. So I never got to face the point where I made a bad decision and it cost somebody.
I understand, yeah.
So I got out on a high versus getting out on a low, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's positive.
Let's backtrack a little bit, man. What was the transition like for you going from, active duty Marine, seeing combat, to working at a police department? Was that challenging for you? Because that's a really
Yes,
dynamic.
crazy hard. Because here I am. I didn't understand the approach that I'm now a community caretaker and I'm here to help people, and not everybody is bad.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, well, I'm a cop, you're calling me, so you need me to handle something, and whoever did this to you, they're a bad person, and now they're always going to be a bad person. Instead of realizing that you got to get out of your car, you got to communicate with the public, you have to be a part of the community for them to respect you. And I didn't know that as a young officer. I was always looking for the criminal act, but not taking the time to appreciate the community, or like it's more enjoyable to help somebody than to arrest somebody. And I didn't understand that because I was chasing that thrill.
What about within the department though? Because you've got guys that, we both know some folks like this, career law enforcement, never joined the military. You're a combat veteran. You were in the Marine Corps. Most civilians in the Marine Corps, and it scares them to death because they don't really understand how the military works.
Right.
But what was that like working with guys when you come in, a new guy off, out of basically with no background in law enforcement? Was that challenging coming out of a combat role into maybe an environment where guys had never been in the military? Did you get looked at a different way, or was it?
I don't think I got looked at in a different way. It was difficult because, for instance, in Mississippi, they all knew that at the time I was married to somebody in the Air Force. So I wasn't committed to staying there. And so they knew it was going to be temporary. And that's kind of like how they treated me until I got on a shift and I kind of made some friends, and they kind of understood how I would work.
That makes sense.
And I had no connections to Columbus, Mississippi, so I had no reason to stay.
Yeah.
And they knew that because I'm sure some of their buddies probably applied and they didn't get the job.
Mm-hmm.
So there was probably some animosity. But yeah, as coming out of the Marine Corps, you're held to a certain standard. So when I would see these people that I was like, oh gosh, why are they let themselves go, or they got messy uniforms, or they're just not put together very well. I'm like, why did you leave the house looking like that?
It's funny, I've dealt with police officers a lot throughout my misspent youth and into my adulthood because I traveled a lot. And in Texas, the 35 corridor, they monitor those with cameras all the way up through Oklahoma and Kansas. So it's a multi-state effort to track people coming from the border. And what they'll do is they'll track your vehicle and how many times you're making this trip. Well, I managed a piece of business that went from the border of Texas and Mexico all the way up 35 through Kansas. And so I was making this trip in my car like all the time. So I used to get pulled over all the time.
Yeah.
And I could always tell the difference between officers who were coming from the military and officers who were like hometown.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's always.
You definitely can. Difference. And I guess the other thing is like in the military, especially being as NCO in the military, if I told somebody to do it, they did it.
Yeah.
So here I am as a cop, and I'm telling somebody on the street, hey, you need to close your door or something. And they tell me no. I was not used to that. I'm not used to hearing no.
Right.
So I'm like, well, damn, now you're challenging me. So I have to react to that. And at the time, I think I was 24, 25, reacting to that. And I still had that, all right, I guess you want to do this. So we're going to do this.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, hey, man, I need you to shut your door and this is why. Turn it into like a PSA to kind of give them an understanding of where I'm coming from so that it's not such a conflict. And I didn't get that. It took me a while to understand that.
Well, the reason I ask you, because I know for me, I came from, NAB Coronado, a very high-speed training base. From that environment, coming out of the Navy as a commissioned officer, into law enforcement, which I had no idea how. You did my ride along the night before I started the training academy, and I know for me personally, it was weird, and I can relate to some of the stuff you said. Like you see people and the uniforms all jacked up, or their hair's long, or they just don't take care of themselves. And that was a total shock to me, dude. And I actually got some blowback from excelling in areas of physical fitness when I was used to you had to exceed the standard or you didn't deserve to be there. And it was kind of like, what are you trying to do? Why I'm just doing the test, man. And so it was weird. And when I went to the state academy, it was even worse because you had jokers. You probably went through it. You had jokers up there that were, running for sheriff, and they're going through the academy and they're like 60, and they can't do a damn push-up. I'm like, what is this place? Like they're gonna yell at us. Like, what is this? So I was just curious.
Because they're getting the money.
No doubt. I was just curious because the Marine Corps is so hardcore compared to the Navy. And I got a lot of respect for the Marines, man. I got to say this: like when I was in San Diego, I'd go over to the Marine base to work out over by the airport, probably where you went to boot camp. And man, I'd be driving on base back when we had base stickers, and they would pop tall and salute me. And man, every guys walking by, they just be like, they didn't care. It's totally different. And I go in go into Next or something, and they'd be like, "Oh, good morning, sir." Like the Marines have always been locked on. I had Marine Corps drill instructors in OCS, and those dudes were amazing, man. I was terrified of them the first couple days, but those are some. I still talk to two of them. Like there were some squares.
It's a different world. I remember
it's a whole different world.
So when we were going through and you're getting all your shots and whatnot, so I'm allergic to penicillin. So I didn't get that shot in the ass. So like everybody sit Indian style in formation. Now start rocking back and forth. And I'm like, well, hell, I don't need to rock back and forth. I didn't get the shot. So they looked at me and they said, you better start fucking rocking. Oh, shit. That's awesome. Yeah. Drill instructors are a trip. They are they come up with the craziest stuff. Oh my God.
They're the funniest people on planet Earth, man.
We had this one dude, his name was McLaughlin, and for some reason they were ducks. You know how you leave chow hall and you got to form up and you just wait for everybody?
Yeah.
Well, these ducks were walking around and he started yelling at the ducks like, you get away from my platoon, duck. Chasing them all over the place. And you're trying not to laugh at this, but you're like, damn. You're killing me, man. I think he ended up getting kicked out for beating a recruit or something, though. He was wild. No. Oh, God, yeah. They get mad and throw locks at you, break your arm.
I got a clipboard thrown at me, and I got choked out by one.
Hey, the worst one I had was this. So this dude behind me, he started urinating on the parade deck. And that's a big no-no, right?
Oh,
like big no-no. So the senior drill instructor walks by me, hits me, pulls the damn. He said, I think he said something like, "I'm a Mike Tyson your ass," and like gets right in that dude's ear, trying to bite his fucking ear. And then that dude disappeared. We never saw him again. I don't know what happened to him.
He's probably dead, dude.
Yeah, he legit vanished for peeing on the parade deck.
Why did he pee on the parade deck?
He had to go pee, and he didn't know how to ask.
Oh, wow.
He was too scared.
He had to go pee.
Hey, that's the best. When you have to go to the bathroom, you know how you have to hammer on the square? Did y'all have to do that?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So when people they can't say, I need to take a shit. So they say number 2. So they're like, what the fuck is a number 2? And you don't know what to say, so you just stand there. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah.
So you just sit there and listen, and you're like, damn, bro. Killing me. You want to hear another pretty good story?
Yeah, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. So it was Ash Wednesday. So the drill instructor say, where's my Catholics at? We raise our hands. And he said, put your hands back down. So he asks again. So we put our hands up. We're like, what the hell? He said, put your hands back down. So he asked a third time. We put our hands up, and he goes, God damn it, we're all Catholic today. It's Ash Wednesday. So everybody's hands go down, but one stays up, and it's a guy to my right. And his name's Godfrey. So they're like, what do you want, Godfrey? And he goes, sir, this recruit's Jewish and does not believe in Ash Wednesday. He said, this recruit requests permission to stay and like clean the barracks or something. I was like, that's a terrible idea.
Yeah.
So the drill instructor says, God damn it, you're getting ashes. Godfrey comes back with ashes on his forehead and celebrates Ash Wednesday. Oh my God.
Man. You're all Jewish today.
No, we're all
That's like-
Catholic
that's like-
today, not Jewish.
That's like straight out of Full Metal Jacket, man.
Oh God, yeah. hmm
That's funny. Oh, that's funny.
And then they said this too. They said, who likes NASCAR? I said, well, I don't like NASCAR, so I'm not raising my hand. And they yell, Dale Earnhardt died today, boys. Sorry to tell you, but let's open up the raceway. I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? You gotta get your green towel out. They spray the whole floor, and they're like, all right, start racing each other, and you're like doing a bear crawl, cleaning all the floors. So I'm glad I didn't raise my hand for that one, because I didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
No. Drill instructors are the worst.
Yeah.
When did you leave the Marines?
I got out in January of 2005.
2005. Okay.
Yeah.
Did you see it shifting by the time you left, or was it pretty much the same Marine Corps that you left? Or that you
No, it was the same.
It was the same.
Oh yeah, you still had all the hazing, all the stuff that you could think of the Marine Corps. It was still going on.
Yeah. Do you think
Yeah.
it's better that way? Just an opinion.
You know, I hear some crazy stuff going on, and it's just like, it's mind blowing because everything was done for a reason.
Yeah.
It was all discipline. Because once you get to war, I mean, you better rely on that discipline or you can get killed.
Yeah. I asked because it's in, like, my great uncle was a Marine, and he fought in World War II in Korea and Vietnam. That one was for fun. He really liked it. But
Yeah.
He said when he went to basic, they were training under live fire and crawling under barbed wire.
Oh yeah.
And,
Now we didn't do live fire, but we did all that other
Yeah.
stuff that.
Yeah, they've got some German guns, and we're training them to get used to the sound, the bullets whizzing past you, and like de-stress. You know, it's the 40s. I don't know.
Hell, you just got to go to the Marine Corps range and you'll hear a bullet whiz past you.
Yeah, no kidding.
There
Well,
ain't
it's
nothing like a
interesting to me.
ricochet.
But he was telling me stories. He said, you know, people weren't paying attention. They'd lift their hand outside the barbed wire.
Oh
and
no.
get their thumbs blown
Wow.
off, and it's like.
Oh yeah.
And he talked about, you know, by the time that he left, when he was in Vietnam, he was training new recruits coming in, you know, fresh in the country, fresh in combat. He was helping them train and kind of adapt. He said it was just a totally different Marine as to when he, obviously, I mean, it's a very different generation. But just wondering
Yeah.
if you'd seen any of that or if you had any take on that.
No, you know, I really haven't. Some of the guys that joined the police department and they were in the Marines, especially now as a lieutenant, I have a couple on my shift, and I'll have one-on-ones with them, and we'll talk about their service, so I can have a better understanding of possibly what they went through, especially if they have some PTSD stuff, because it's not an easy thing to talk about. And if they're not talking to somebody or feel comfortable talking to somebody, they're just going to keep it bottled in. And the last thing I ever want to see them do is to crumble from that, especially on a call
Yeah.
where you have a body camera going, everything's recorded. And I mean, anybody can get this recording at any time because it's all public record.
Sure.
So for me to explain to them that, like, yeah, I don't just have these things on my wall that say I was a Marine. I've experienced some of the stuff they've experienced. I've talked to therapists. I've sought counseling, and I've dealt with the VA as well. So I can kind of be a springboard for them to seek help if they haven't, because I've done it.
That's really cool. It's interesting to me too because it's, I mean, that was a 20-year war that was going on.
Yeah.
I mean, that's multi-generational combat experience, you know.
Oh, it truly is. I'll tell you, we hire people, and I'm like, how old are you? Or when were you born? And they tell me 2003. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh. getting so
Yeah, that's
old.
wild.
So
Wild.
you have some pretty young guys that served, that saw some combat, and now they're out. They're trying to find their way. They have young families. I mean, they're working midnights, so the hours aren't great for a family, and they have a lot to get out that they just probably haven't getting out. Because, like Morris, you know, when you get out of the military, and they're like, "All right, let's have a debrief," it's so informal, and it's a bunch of people talking about, "Oh, I went to," like mine guy was like, "I went to the Philippines for a quick 3 weeks." I'm thinking, bro, you don't have a fucking clue at what the rest of us are here that we could talk about.
Mm-hmm.
But you needed to get that out that you went to the Philippines for 3 weeks. Hats off to you.
Do you see the younger generation being more open-minded when it comes to therapy and mental health? So, you know, obviously PTSD is a big thing.
Yeah.
Our generation, our age, you know, we've talked about this on other episodes. I mean, we were taught to don't be a bitch, suck it up.
Oh yeah.
Talk about your feelings. But it's cool to hear you say that you've gone through therapy, because I mean, for our average listener, you know, you're a big dude, you've got combat experience, you're a police officer, which that scares a lot of, you know, just normal citizens, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But it's cool to hear you say that. So when you got these younger guys that are coming out of the Corps and they're getting hired on at the department, are they more open-minded when it comes to mental health stuff, or what's your take on that?
You know, I've realized that most of them have already sought help while they were in the military, because
That's good.
because when you come back from a deployment, it's almost demanded of you. You have to go to it. But
Yeah.
so it's hard to trust somebody to really, all right, I'm about to divulge into you all my deepest, darkest secrets. So to be vulnerable is very hard. Because I'll tell you this. So today I saw my therapist today, and they asked me, what's your week look like? And I said, actually, I'm doing a podcast tonight. And they're like, oh, wow. I said, yeah. I said, a part of me is cautious because what I put out in this podcast is out to the world forever. I can't take it back.
Right.
And they said, well, what's the point of doing the podcast? Are you trying to help people? Or are you trying to give a sliver of your life that really isn't telling them anything? I was like, well, that's a good point. Because I would rather help somebody versus somebody watching this and saying, I really didn't get anything from that dude. So there's got to be a purpose.
Yeah. Well, it's something like our mission with this whole podcast too is to show that guys that are manly or masculine, or however you want to put it, that it's okay to ask for help.
Yeah.
It's okay to be vulnerable, obviously in a space that's one where you can feel comfortable sharing, but that it's okay to work on your mental health. You don't have to be just this, you know, stoic where you don't have any emotion or talk about trauma. And obviously the PTSD piece is a little different than, say, childhood trauma.
Right.
And dude, I started going to therapy when I was still at Franklin, and I just didn't have an open mind with it. You know, I felt forced to go, which in a way I was. So I kind of like, I don't want to be here. And I kind of just walked through it. And I was still like, I carried a lot of ghosts from my naval career into law enforcement. And I'm convinced today that's why things ended the way they did, because I was just not dealing with the root cause of it. And it took me hitting rock bottom to really take a hard look and say, hey man, therapy is actually legit. Like it's necessary. But so the whole thing with you being on here too, we're trying to like reach a demographic of, you know, not just veterans, but guys that are first responders that may still have that attitude like, man, I don't need to talk about my feelings, that's weak, or, you know, I can just blow it
I'll tell you this, if once I started talking to somebody, it made me realize maybe why I became the way I did. Why did I join the Marine Corps? Yeah, I got $40. That's a good story, and it's factual. It's true.
Yeah.
But when I told her about my parents divorcing, she said that probably set you into a depression that you weren't aware of, and then you needed to get away. And going to community college, still living at home, you never really got away. So this was an escape for you.
Yeah.
So, and then after boot camp, I come home, and my mom sells the house, and now I have no home. No home that I knew of.
Right.
So coming back at that point, it wasn't an option because there's nothing to come back to in my mind.
Yeah.
So I needed to figure out my own way.
Right.
So had I not talked to a therapist, I never would have put that correlation together. And then the scary thing is they said, all right, so how old were you when that happened? I said 17. Said, all right, so for the last, let's say 27 years, you've kept that in. So for 27 years, you've kept that in. Then you join the military. You've got more from that. Then you get PTSD. You go to combat. You leave that. Now you're trying to be a community caretaker, and you haven't taken care of any of this pile up that's sitting on you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just building and building and building and building. So I wish I would have talked to somebody a long time ago. I'll tell you that.
Oh, me too. Me too, man. You remember what was that guy's name? Was it Peter Cove that was at the academy? He was like the mental health advocate. We had to sit through it before we graduated, and I remember. I don't know if you remember. You may not. Did you?
No, because I went in Mississippi.
Okay, that's right. So this guy came and did this big lecture, and he said the divorce rates in law enforcement are, like 85%, and alcoholism and all. And I'm just sitting here going, man, this guy's full of shit, dude. This ain't gonna happen to me. Oh,
Yeah.
look what happened. The guy was right, but I was.
He had you pegged.
He did, man. And I was like, I was probably like mid to late 20s, and I was just sitting there like cocky, like this guy, he what he's talking about, man.
Uh-huh.
No, he was right, dude. He did. And the psychiatrist that I had to go through for the hiring process, he had me dead to rights, and I was like, man, you don't know me, dude. Like, it's like whatever. No,
it's funny because he said that to me too. The psychiatrist looked at me and he said, I think you still have some unresolved issues with your ex-wife and your father. And I said, all right. He goes, you should talk to somebody. I said, well, how much does that cost? He said, $125 an hour. I said, I think I'll just talk to Jesus because I don't have $125 an hour.
Yeah.
And I still did.
So too. And on that subject, though, it's like talking about this newer generation, and they're more open, and it's almost mandatory now. But there's so many more resources too.
Oh yeah.
And everybody's got Teladoc basically.
Mm-hmm.
And it's free.
Yeah.
Like talking to mental health experts is free through Teladoc.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? On most plans, like Obamacare plans, have free mental health resources. So
yeah, I think once you can talk and understand yourself, and obviously read some good books that can kind of help you identify yourself, your personality, understand an Enneagram or like a profile trait, like a DISC. Then you can kind of understand, all right, this is where I should be and where I need to be in like my career. And it also helps you how can you be a better, coworker, a better father, a better husband, all that stuff. If you just understand yourself, and that's our biggest problem. We never really truly understand ourselves until sometimes it's too late.
Yeah.
And then we do understand ourselves, and we can't go back and take that. We have to live with that and forge on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a challenge. I think a lot of times as you start to understand yourself better, you can kind of look back and see the havoc that you wrecked and
oh yeah,
brought on, and that's hard because it also, now I know myself. Now I gotta forgive myself for
right.
not having it all together all the time.
Right.
Yeah, it helps you understand the why. Why did I do this, or why am I this way?
Yeah.
So it's wild. It really is wild to understand yourself.
Yeah, it's really cool. Do you find, especially in leadership role in something like law enforcement, which is so nuanced, and you're dealing with people that, you don't deal with people on good days normally.
No.
So it's usually the worst in somebody's life that you're meeting them or interacting with them. At best, you're usually a nuisance because you're pulling them over, whatever, patrol cars, interacting daily. Do you find, your role as leadership now in this, and knowing yourself and kind of your experience, like how does that interplay with how you're training and leading new officers in the field?
I think it's good because I've experienced what they've experienced or what they are experiencing. I've been there. I've been on patrol. I've been on the midnights. I've been in the car where you're not wanting to go to the next call because maybe you had a bad call. So I've done it. I've done all that. And a good way to combat it is to get out of your car. So I'll give you a good example. As a new sergeant here, I had a good partner, and Steve knows him. His name was Chris Hollingsworth, and we used to sit at the Twice Dailies gas station here in Franklin, up by I-65. Because they had like big bench seats, and you could eat. So it'd be like 2, 3 in the morning. And let me tell you, the people you meet at 2, 3 in the morning, they are interesting folks.
Yeah, no doubt.
And they come in and they're hesitant to look at you, and they're kind of scared or standoffish, and all you have to do is say hello or see something on them and compliment them or whatnot, and then it turns into a full-fledged conversation because people want to talk.
Yeah.
They don't really care about, hey, tell me about the last car you pulled over or anything. They just are interested. They find it interesting that a cop would find something interested in them. So it got so good that we were like, damn, we should do a podcast from here with just random people walking up.
Just randos?
Yeah, with everybody that we've met. We met so many people. I'll tell you, we met a group of furries. Yes. Prior to being prior to that encounter, I didn't even know what a furry was.
Were they in costume?
No. So let me tell you.
Oh God.
These two dudes walk in, and the one guy's wearing a shirt that says "The Anatomy of a Fox," and the other one was like "The Anatomy of a Dog." I don't know, some shit.
Okay.
But they had tails, like out the back of their pants. I said, "What the hell?" And then they had little pictures pinned on them. So I was like, "All right, dudes, we got to ask, what's the deal?" And they said, "Hey, once a month at Franklin Lanes, they have like a meetup, like a get together."
Yeah.
So we talked to them for a while, and they realized that we weren't there to make fun of them by any means. We were like, really like, what the hell is this? So we went onto Facebook, and we found their page and like their organizer and stuff. And sure enough, she came walking in like a couple weeks later, and I called her by her name. I said, "Clementine Fox," and she looked at me like, "What?" So she's a fox. So she kind of explained the whole furry thing to us because we don't know anything about this. So they invited us to come. So we grabbed a couple of our officers and we're like, "Come on, we need to go to Franklin Lanes. You ain't gonna believe this shit." So we walk in there and they're looking at us like, "You guys are crazy. Like, we need to get out of here."
Oh, yeah.
And parents are walking up to us. They're like, "There's this man in the bathroom with a tail coming out of his jeans next to my kid." I'm like, "It's okay.
Gosh.
They're not here to harm anybody."
They're benign people. Yeah.
They're like the misfits of America, but that's where they feel comfortable. So we were cool with them. But yeah,
You know
so
what,
one
Scott?
night you
I'd
could
watch
meet.
that podcast too. I'd sit there and watch that all
Oh,
day
it's
long.
hilarious. So okay, so
Are
here,
you
check this
familiar-
out. 1 minute you're talking to a furry. The next minute you have a 1%er rolling in like December on his motorcycle.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at him, I'm like, damn, he's a 1%er. Like, he legit had the patch on.
Yeah.
And he wasn't wanting to look at us. So I was just like, man, it's awfully cool to be riding that bike. And he thought that was cool that we commented to. So he came over and talked to us.
What
Cool
game?
as shit. He was Scorpions out of North Carolina. He was in town for a birthday party.
No kidding.
He was, I think it's a part of the Outlaws, maybe. I don't know.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
This is
But he was
outlaw.
pretty cool. Because I said, damn, if I was in a motorcycle group, I'd like to be a Scorpion. That sounds pretty neat. I don't even know how to ride a motorcycle.
You get a little tail stick or stinger stick out of your pants.
Yeah.
Yeah, no shit, right?
Very scorpion.
He'd be Quincy Fox.
Yeah, Quincy Fox. There you go.
Yeah,
There you go.
Quincy Fox. Now,
That's
if you look up these furries, whatever animal they pick is designed to like their sexual activity, I guess.
Oh god.
So like she told us that if you're a fox, it means you're promiscuous. And I was like, okay, whatever. And then she said, but if you're a bear, it means you're like a gay man. So one of our officers walked in, and I said, what do you think that guy is? And she goes, oh, he's definitely a bear.
Oh, that guy's probably the Navy too, right?
No, I don't know. I don't think he was ever in the military.
Oh, I was joking.
Too funny. Too funny.
You know the joke
But
is
yeah.
the Navy, so.
Yeah, the Navy's wild.
Yeah.
That brings up a good point, though, because one of the things I speak about, I've got friends, and like I talk about this a lot, that kind of live on really wide ends of the spectrum. Super, super liberal, super conservative. I really don't know anybody lukewarm. Some of those friends went to university for, like criminal justice reform and civil rights and these sorts of things. And so policing is like a topic of discussion amongst friends a lot.
Yeah.
My position is community policing is it's the way to go. Well, that's community policing to me. That kind of
100%. So
I wanted to kind of hear your thoughts on that and kind of what you see real world managing police and.
It was. I'll take you back to 2020 when COVID hit.
Yeah.
Because everything got shut down. It was don't interact with people. You need to wear a mask on. Only go to calls only go if you get called. No traffic stops. No people. No like interaction whatsoever. So you're hiring new officers, and you're trying to train them, but you're like, oh, we can't make a traffic stop. Mm-hmm. Or we can't do this. So then, all right, COVID's over. And you're like, all right, now you need to do this. And they're like, well, I don't know how to do it because I was never taught.
Yeah.
And then people are like, well, I'm still in that COVID mindset of I'm here to answer my calls and I'm not to be proactive. It's like, no, COVID's over. You can be the police again. It's okay. But it's hard for them to get out of that mentality.
Did you see a spike in crime during that period since you guys were more hands off?
I don't know if I would say we saw a spike because everybody was just afraid, in a sense. So nobody was really doing a whole lot because they didn't know what was going on.
Well, I mean, like if you guys weren't making stops, man, I'd just be flying up and down.
Oh, that was
Columbia Avenue doing Mach 2.
I lived in Colorado when COVID hit. And there was really strict lockdowns. I was working with healthcare companies, and so I had a pass to like drive.
Essential
in Colorado, I was an essential whatever. But I went I maxed out that speedometer.
Yeah.
Because they weren't pulling anybody up.
No, nobody was trying to get sick. Everybody wanted to be as healthy as possible.
I got pulled over once in Utah during all that, and they sent me to court for it.
You should have told them you had COVID, and then they would let you go.
I told the judge, I said I work in healthcare. I was on my way to a facility, which is true. To train that team, and he's like, oh, well, then why are you here? And he hung up the Zoom court meeting.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So you saw a big shift in policing then, and then George Floyd happens, and the media is showing different sides of the police, and then so now you're having to battle the media. You're having to try to recruit people to come into this profession, and they're like, I don't want anything to do with that because I'm going to be put on blast. My life will be ruined online, and you're not going to pay me enough for that. Yeah. So you have to figure out how are we going to combat that to recruit people because we're short-staffed. What are you going to do?
What do you do?
And that was a challenge for all law enforcement agencies.
Yeah. I have some friends that were police officers who've since moved on to like different careers, but what they all said was the same thing. It's like in just one day of a news cycle, the entire mentality of the community versus the police just fell apart.
It did.
Somewhere like Franklin is probably a lot different than where they were at in California, but I mean, did you guys see that here?
We truly didn't. I'll say this, for the citizens of Franklin greatly appreciate the police department. And some businesses around town will have signs out that say we support our local law enforcement. Kind of like Stevie's Moody's has that out across the street from y'all.
Yeah.
So for other agencies to come into town for like a training or whatnot, and they see that, that blows their minds, because that's not the norm. To have a community, a city mayor, city administrator, BOMA, everybody is full on support of our first responders. So we're extremely fortunate for that.
What's recruiting look like nowadays? Are you seeing an uptick in it, or is it still?
It's starting to come
level off?
back. So obviously, with this new generation, they love two things. They're concerned about their money, and they're concerned about their time off.
Mm-hmm.
So if the money doesn't make sense, then they're not even worried about the time off. And if the money makes sense, the next question is, well, what days off do I have, or what's my freedom look like? So remember back in the day when we got hired and we were like, all these extra jobs and you can make all this money, like, hell yeah, I'll do it. I'll make all the extra money I can. Now it's the exact opposite. You're having to like force people to work extra jobs, which is pretty wild.
That is wild.
So last year we realized we needed to up our pay. We needed to kind of get on board with what THP was paying. So we approached the city, and they agreed that we were below the threshold where we should be. So they raised that, and that helped recruiting. So now we're getting our numbers back up, and our staffing's looking a lot better. So that's good. But yeah, but money and time off, that's what this generation cares about.
Yeah.
Yeah, we see that in the private sector too, and it's a big shift away from. I'm a chef by trade, and so working in kitchens forever, and you would work 16-hour days, 6 days.
Oh yeah.
A week, and that was just that. Like there was no time off.
Right.
There was no holidays.
You just work.
You worked every holiday. You just work.
Yeah.
But now it's the same thing. You see in the industry now, and I think it's every industry. That's the big concern is, well, how's the pay? Well, it's still like food service, so it sucks.
Yeah.
Like compared to like IT or something.
Yeah.
You're not
You can make as much money as you want as a cop, but you won't have the time off. There's got to be give and take.
And that's the same thing with cooking, because I used to do my job as a sous chef, which paid nothing, and then I would do private gigs on the side, which paid a lot of things, but like that meant, again, 16, 18-hour days, 6 days a week, and that was great for me. But the new generation, they care about, life outside of work, which I don't think is completely unhealthy.
No, it's actually really good, and we should have been that way a long time ago.
We should. I think when we talk about mental health in particular, when you have any kind of high stress job, but policing, I think, takes the cake for everything you do has the potential to be very high consequence.
It truly does. And you know what I was thinking before I came on this, I was like, what was one of the craziest scenes I've ever been a part of? And it was actually, Morris, you were working that night.
I know.
It was that Broadwell Circle call.
Was that the kid with the knife?
Yeah.
Mom and brother? Yeah.
Yeah. The reason I remembered you working, because Hollingsworth tells the story that you were like, bro, I got to go. He's like, no, you need to stay right here at Franklin High. Don't leave.
Yeah, I was pissed, man. I was the only one that didn't get in on it.
See, that's your background was like, I need to respond to that. I need to play my role. But in actuality, your role was, no, now you have the whole city of Franklin, which is an extremely large role.
Well, you know what's crazy? I think Chris and I were actually sitting at that church on Franklin Road in McHatcher. We were hanging out. It was a Sunday night, and we were both about to fall asleep. And it went out, and that's when I was like, he got the call, and I was like, man, this is bullshit. And you're right, I had the whole city. I mean, I just drove around the whole city, and I ended up getting to come over there once the other guys were coming on shift. But I remember there was already perimeter set up, and Savage was, I think, one of the first guys on the scene.
Yeah,
he told me he rolled up on the first victim. And
that was crazy.
That's funny you remember that. Yeah, that was a long time ago.
That was probably the most gruesome scene I've ever seen as a cop. That was it.
Scott, I'm gonna hit the pause button real quick. You won't go away or anything. I just got to pee really bad.
All right.
Man, that was that's wild. That I wouldn't have guessed you would have picked that one as the most traumatic. I mean, I remember it, but
Well, this is why I say that, because I was the shield man on the SWAT team for that one. So I was in there and I saw
What's
the
a shield, man,
house,
Scott?
the walls.
Tell the layman.
Oh God, it was terrible.
Well, can you explain what a shield man is for our audience?
Oh, I'm sorry. So on the SWAT team, you have the shields. So for that, because we didn't know if the guy was in the house or not, so you'd always enter in with the shield man first, and then you'd have their cover, who typically has a long rifle or a pistol. They would be behind them, and you'd be moving. And on that one, we did it slow and deliberate, which meant we had to clear every single room in a very methodical way, without any rush, using pole cams through the whole house. And I think this house was like 3,600 square feet. It was huge.
Well, that's a lot of house to walk through.
So I was carrying a shield for a hot damn minute. I was ready to get rid of that thing. But yeah.
It's just wild to me. For myself and many like me that are not military or law enforcement background. Like I hang out, I work out every day with a Marine. And he's just wild. Like just the stories that they tell, just wild.
Yeah.
And every story they tell, another really good friend of mine is an Army Ranger, and like you guys tell stories like it's just another day on the job. And I'm like, yeah, but like my job isn't like that, you know. So it's always impressive to me, like just the amount of. I would be a terrible cop, first of all, and I would be an even worse soldier, I think.
You know, that's the crazy thing I've noticed. Like if we were ever at like somebody that was, in my mind, a very wealthy person, let's say we're at their house party. Like I'll give you an example. So my wife now, she used to babysit these kids, and they lived up in a neighborhood next to the Governor's Club. And Eddie George was their next door neighbor. So parents were very, very fluent. And they had a house party one night, and they invited us. So we went, and their guest thought that we were like the help, because she babysat the kids every now and then, right?
Oh, man.
And I'm like, I'm not the fucking help. So anyway, by the end of the night, these people with all this money and whatever, all they wanted to do was hear my stories. I'm thinking, how weird is that? I'm making like damn $16.20 an hour, probably eating ramen noodles and Goober's grape jelly and peanut butter mix, so I don't have to buy grape jelly and peanut butter. And they want to hear my stories. It's wild.
It is wild, but it's also like I was a little bit rough and tumble. I was in a lot of fights. I was a musician. I played all over the place, and we were always finding ourselves in sketchy situations, by design or not. But every fight, everything I was ever into, I was always mortified. I was terrified. So when you hear somebody that's like, you know, you hear gunshots and you race in, like that's your personality type. You race towards the trouble.
Doesn't mean you're not scared though.
No, but it is fascinating to hear. But I want to hear your take on that, and then Steve, also yours. Like you guys deal with that. Like what is that like?
Sometimes it's instinctual. Like you just do it. And I realized that when I was deployed, that that's just how I reacted, and I don't know why. But then when we do Sims training in like the police academy, if I heard the guy that I was going against, if I heard his gun jam, that was his ass, and I was going after him. Like I would get up and I would charge him, and that's the last thing you should ever do if you're in a gunfight. But that's what I just instinctually did. So when you don't think and you just react, and you know, all right, I'm probably going to react this way, there's some comfort in that, I guess you could say. But that's also knowing yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I got a story that might put that in perspective. So I don't know, Scott, if you remember this or if you were working, and I think this is when we were running 12s. and there was a really bad house fire. I don't remember the exact street, but it was over on the tree streets. And I remember, I won't say his name, but the sergeant working was known to kind of, tell everybody what to do, even when you could figure it out on your own. And I remember them telling me the first thing was, make sure you don't park where you'll run over the hoses. That's the only thing they said as I'm going to this call. So I'm the first guy on the scene.
Yeah.
I roll up. Of course, I beat the fire department, and I'm already there. And I get out, and the house is on fire. And there's two guys at a side window, and they're trying to pull their grandmother out of the window.
Yeah, I
So
know
I go
the
to
call.
grab her. You remember that one? So I go to grab her arm, and when I grab her arm, I just got skin back. So I'm like, fuck. And these guys are like, and they're watching their grandmother basically burned to death. So I go around the side, and I go through the front of the house, and Josie had just been born. So I go into the house, and I'm like, fuck it, I'm going. And then all of a sudden, I stopped. And I was like, dude, if you keep going, you're dead. Because the whole house was engulfed. We didn't have the equipment to deal with that. So I backed back out, went back around, and by this time, you remember Chris Clark? Clark that used to work there. He rolled up, and he and I went and got this little kids picnic table to help the guys from the fire department figure out how to get through the window as they're putting their stuff on. We're screaming at them or give me the equipment, I'll go do it.
Yeah.
So they finally get in, but the woman ended up not making it. And I remember just being mad as hell that I didn't have the training or the equipment to just go in and get her, because I could have carried her out if I could get into the house.
Yeah.
But we just couldn't get her out that window because she was very heavy. She's a big individual, and it was crazy. And I remember and I'm laughing just because this is the funny part. We get done with everything, and they're like, Morris, you parked too close to the house. Now the fire trucks. I'm just like, really, man? I just witnessed this lady die, and you're bitching about where I parked.
Now you're stuck on the scene, and you can't get out.
And I couldn't leave. Yeah, I had to hang out.
Uh-huh.
They came over do you need to talk to someone? I was like, no, I'm pissed off because I couldn't do anything. I could.
Yeah.
I lied to him because it messed with me. But going to Scott's comment about how you just kind of react, that was my instinct, was just to run
go
into the house. But it's something in my head. I think it's because I had a daughter at the time. I thought, well, if I keep going, then I'm done. I think if I would have been single, I probably would have kept going.
It's interesting. So I worked with the Civil Air Patrol out in West Texas, and we were attached to a retired Air Force base, and we had a lot of missions that were given to us for search and rescue out in, especially Palo Duro Canyon out in West Texas, hikers or whoever go missing, or small engine aircraft would always crash in the canyon.
Yeah.
And so, I wouldn't necessarily, if the house was on fire, I wouldn't want to run inside. Or if a gunfight broke out, I wouldn't necessarily run towards the gunfire. But I do run to people that need first aid or help or whatever. So I guess on some level I understand it. It's just a different animal.
But I think too, man, they're looking to you. Those guys are looking to me to get her out of there.
For sure.
Because I show up to help. I'm not there to arrest them or to, they're looking. They need help.
Yeah, they need
help.
So
you gotta do something. I mean, even though I wasn't able to save their grandmother, you don't want to just kind of sit back and be like, shit, I ain't going in there.
I was never more relieved. We live in a nice community, a nice neighborhood. And one night we heard gunshots outside.
No kidding.
And so I run outside to see
you're in the
what's
borough,
going on. I know. But I run outside to see what's going on, and there's a car in the middle of the road, and the road behind my house. And so I run back there. The parents had showed up. They heard what was going on. It was this kid. It was 19, 20 years old. He was selling shoes, of all things. Shoes.
Yeah.
And the deal went bad, and the dude shot him.
Dang, man.
And they're like, help him. And so I do. I run over, and I'm like, it's not good. So I grab the parents and take them away from the car. I'm like, I do not need to see what I just saw. And my first thought was, good God, can the cops hurry up and get here? So I truly do. I think that I'm those people at that party that would be like, just tell me what's your day like? Because my day is not like that,
Yeah, I could tell you a wild day. That's for sure. So
What's wild to me, though, the most wild thing is not that you have a crazy thing happen, it's that you have a crazy thing happen and you get back in the car to go to the next one.
Turn it off.
right.
That's the
Yeah, I bet
Yeah.
nobody checked on Steve, and they're like, "All right, you have a zone to work, so you're back at it, bud." And then the next call he goes to, God knows.
Yeah,
Because
and
that
I will say
happens
this.
to us a lot.
There
'Cause-
was one person, I won't mention her name, but she actually came up to me and said, "You probably need to go talk to somebody. That's messed up that they didn't get." Because you could see when they rolled her out on the gurney. I mean, it was right in front of all of us.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
that neighborhood, you know the neighborhood, Scott. They erupted at the hospital.
Yeah.
They lost and they kind of had a right to do that. But yeah, I had one coworker. I think she was like the assistant shift supervisor that night. Came up and said, "Hey, you probably should go talk." They were more concerned about the smoke in my lungs than what I looked at. You know, they were more concerned about that. But yeah, that's a good point though. What I should have, looking back on that, and we can all do this in our lives, but I probably should have took the initiative and just gone to Alexis and say, "Hey, I need to go talk to somebody."
Yeah,
And I'll be honest with you, there's still times when I'll have flashes of that. It's weird, man.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, yeah.
we had a guy in my couple neighborhoods ago. He had a heart attack, and I was home with the kids by myself. A neighbor came and got me, and me and another neighbor did CPR on him. And fire department finally shows up, and you know I'm kind of taking charge of the scene. And I hadn't done CPR in years, and I revived him, but he ended up dying at the hospital, and it just pissed me off, man, because I'm not going to throw him under the bus on this podcast, but I think it could have been handled a little different when some of the first responders showed up. You know, it was frustrating, man, because you're not in control of the scene. It's frustrating, and you know, Dan and I did CPR on him, but you know, it was just one of those situations where unfortunately our neighbor didn't make it. But it's wild, man. It's kind of, I think it's like Scott said, it's just more of an instinct. You just kind of
you do.
Is that a result of training or personality or both?
I think
it's both. Yeah, it's both because Steve and I have worked with guys that they have all that training, but they don't want to be the first.
Yeah.
They'll watch the computer and they'll wait, and then when someone shows up, they're like, "All right, now I'll go."
Call doctor.
Yeah, they slow walk it.
Yeah.
But I'll say this: where the law enforcement profession and fire and EMS, where we've come a long way, is now when we have an incident like that, we'll have debriefs. So we'll bring in different trained personnel from other agencies, come in and they'll listen to everybody in a group setting where everybody has a chance to talk, and they can kind of explain what they went through, what they saw. And it kind of brings some closure to the call. And you get a different perspective of people that weren't on the call, but they are in the profession. And sometimes they'll validate your feelings.
Yeah.
When did that come around, Scott?
I would say after 2020. I think that's when it really kicked off.
So one of the things that I talk about with my friends a lot is sometimes, even if it's unjust, civil upheaval like what happened in 2020, 2021, where it was all defund the police, we're going to riot, we're going to do all these things in just a couple of cities. But I think what that does sometimes is it sparks a wake-up call. Like, man, I mean, that's uncalled for, but there are some things that we could work on here. Do you agree?
Right. Yeah, definitely. And you have to start listening to your people. If your people need help, like you can't just say, "Hey, Steve, you need to go talk to somebody." Well, what does that mean to them? Who am I supposed to go talk to? Do we have a phone number? Am I just supposed to pick some random person? Like, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
So now we can say, "All right, come to my office. I have this phone number. If we need a therapist here, I can call somebody and they'll be here in 15 minutes. If you need, if we had a critical incident where an officer fired their gun, we can have, I'm trying to think, peer support. We have peer supporters now that are trained in staying with an officer and kind of making phone calls to their family if need be, and never leaving their side until it's time to go home.
Okay.
Where we didn't have that before. That wasn't viewed as a priority or a need. But now we're slowly getting into that. So it's good.
That's awesome. That's really good.
It really is awesome. I think one of the things that I tell people all the time is, particularly my friends that are part of that, like we need to defund the police, this, that, and the other, that crew, is it's complicated because everything is nuanced, and at the end of the day, police officers are people.
Yeah.
And most of them are good agents working in their community on a mission. You know, they're on a mission to make things safe and great for everybody in that community. But the human factor, I think the uniform is both a beacon for this is someone here to help, but it also makes us forget that there's a human behind that uniform. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And that's
Have you seen
where
that in your experience?
I think law enforcement has to step up to the plate and own that, because we've allowed that to happen. So, like tonight, I'm going to go to the gas station without a doubt, and I'm going to get some coffee. And there could be a young lady walk in, and she wants to get high noon or some alcohol, right? So she's going to have to walk by me to go pay for that. Now I could just stare at her and be a weirdo, or I could say, "High noon, what flavor is that?" Or strike up some conversation to where she's like gets put at ease. And she's like, "Damn, that cop just wondered what high noon I was drinking," and I don't like high noon. I've never really drank those. My wife does, but it's about having a conversation, because you never know what somebody's going to tell you, or what they're needing, or what they're going through. Because I'll tell you this. So one day, sitting there drinking coffee, and this lady comes in, and she always gets coffee. So we'd see her all the time, over and over and over. And then she got a little more comfortable. And then she started talking about how she's in a domestic relationship. Like her husband's verbally and physically assaulting her, and she's trying to figure out how can she get away? Yeah. But it took many weeks for her to get that courage to bring that up to us.
Sure.
And we still see her to this day. She still comes in and gets her coffee and says hello. And we don't ask her questions. We don't press the issue, but she knows if she needs to talk to us, we can. Yeah. So that's a totally different side of policing that you're never going to see. That's where you really feel like you're making a difference.
Let me ask you this real quick, Scott. Do you think that is because of your maturity level now versus when you were just on patrol?
Oh, 100%.
Because, dude, I never would have thought of that. When I was on patrol, I didn't want to talk to people. I didn't want to be messed with or bothered.
See?
I mean,
yeah.
I was like, I'm like, hey, like, I'm just trying to do my thing, don't come over here and ask me some dumb question about what the Glock does or what the taser does. Like, just leave me alone. It's like, go beat it.
Exactly. So when you can show people that we do have commonalities and that we are truly there to help, or just shoot the shit.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to drive around in a car all night. That's not fun. So the people you meet, once you can respect that, and you're like, that's what this job's truly about, is meeting people and being an outlet for them if they have a police question, or if they have an issue at home and they don't know who to call, and you can give them guidance, but then you just change the relationship between your law enforcement agency and that person.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
Are you seeing that mindset now in the younger officers coming in? Are they teaching that kind of stuff in the academy?
They're afraid to talk to people still. I mean, they're going to get to that point, but they have to see it. Once they see you doing it, and they kind of like, all right, so this is how he did that. It's really easy.
Yeah.
You've got to say something, and you just find something about them. Next thing you know, they're talking to you about freaking QAnon and everything else, and taking you down these rabbit holes, and you're like, holy shit, I got to get out of here.
Yeah, I got to go.
Yeah. But you'll always remember that person.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that part of policing is what's never shown, and that's truly probably the best part of policing.
Yeah. I think, though, to your point, I think that your department does a good job, at least from the social media side. I see more stuff like on Facebook and Instagram where there's kind of that community related stuff. And I still laugh to this day. I don't know what your take is on this, but look, I guess whenever you guys hire officers, it's big news on Facebook. And I just remember going, did nobody care when I got hired? I mean, it was like, celebration. It's like, oh, wow, yay. It's like, but it's good because I think it takes that human side into effect where it shows people like, hey, I can maybe approach one of these guys and then I can be a jerk.
I think it's
not afraid of the cops.
And you're also showing, like, somebody may know that person and like, damn, I didn't know that they were even applying, or if they can do it, I could do it, or you just never know. You never know how it's going to hit. Yeah. And then for people like me that's not from here, if my mom sees my picture on Facebook or whatever, she gets all excited and wants to share it with her friends.
Yeah, that's cool though. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So there's different ways of it, but we're starting to get into the social media a little bit more. We weren't for a while, and that was part of the recruiting aspect. You have to be on social media with this generation. If they don't see you, they're going to see another agency, and the other agency is going to look sexier, so they'll go there. And then you miss out.
Back in the day when we worked together, I mean, you weren't supposed to put anything on social media about your job.
Oh God, no.
In uniform, you didn't talk about it.
No.
Online, you didn't say what you did.
Right.
So it definitely changed a lot. Yeah, it was a secret. It was for sure.
Otherwise, they try to find you on MySpace and send you mean messages.
MySpace. I forgot about MySpace. I forgot about that.
I only know that because it happened to me. This lady found me on MySpace after I wrote her a speeding ticket, and she started like going off on me. I was like, "What the hell?"
That's awesome.
I know.
I forgot about that.
We had that shooting incident that happened in my neighborhood. We had one amazing police officer that realized there's really nothing to be done. Another officer was waiting or trying to do what he could for the victim, but it was just cool. Like, he's like, "What can I do over here?" And I said, "Let's just pray for this family. Like, let's pull them together and just pray with them and try to calm this down." And he's like, "Absolutely, man." We prayed together, and he hugged the mom and was waiting, and it was just really good. Like, that's solid policing because there's really, I mean, he could have just said, well, "I've got to go stand by the car and wait for Ian."
Right. That's some like the most uncomfortable moments too. When you're with a family and somebody just died or whatnot, and you're like, shit, like
there's nothing to do.
I don't know how to handle this. I'm sorry. I wish I could do X, Y, and Z. I can call a priest or a pastor. Yeah. It's a tough thing that you don't ever get taught. You never get taught that.
It was just so instinctive of him just to jump in and say, yes, absolutely, let's do that. I'm a letter writer, so I wrote a letter to the mayor and saying this officer was incredible, yada yada yada. They gave him a commendation, and then the next day he retired. So he got to retire with a feather in his cap.
I'll tell you, you probably helped him more than you know by suggesting that, because it allowed him to do something where he wasn't doing anything, but he knew he needed to do something, and you gave him an out to do something.
Well, I don't know. I appreciate that, but
that was a big deal on your part.
Yeah.
Because I can tell you this, on many, like Morris, on your scene with the lady, after you did that, you were standing there in the fires doing everything. You're like, all right, what now?
Yeah.
You just don't know what to do.
You just go about your day, man.
So you probably helped that guy out more than you'll ever realize by saying, let's pray.
Yeah.
Or do you want to pray?
Gave you some peace through it all,
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Scott, I got a really, really difficult question. I'm not sure, especially in your position, if you're going to want to answer. What's your favorite police show?
Police show?
Yeah.
Oh shoot! I'll tell you, I do have one, and it's on. I think it's on Amazon Prime. It's called Bosch.
Oh yeah.
That's probably the best police show I've ever seen.
Is it accurate or is it just good?
I would say I've never worked in LA, but for the most part, it's pretty accurate.
Okay.
I would say the way they do everything.
Favorite police show?
Yeah.
No, man, I don't know. Like, I mean, trying to think. Like, most cops are probably gonna say their favorite movie's Training Day. But everybody says training day.
Yeah.
That's the worst.
No. I got one. Remember that movie Dark Blue with Kurt Russell and the LA riots? That
Dark
movie was
Blue?
badass. Yeah, you ever see that movie?
That must be
Kurt
before my
Russell.
time.
Oh, whatever, dude.
I don't remember that.
It's probably like it had to be like it had to be shot probably like late '90s, early 2000s. It's about the LA riots. It was really cool.
I don't remember
it's like
that.
old school. And Kurt Russell's related to, of all people, Wyatt Earp in it, but he played Wyatt Earp in Tombstone. So I thought it was,
That's dope.
yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But see, I
Big
never
Ranger.
wanted to be a cop. I never planned on being a cop. It just kind of fell in my lap because I needed a job.
Yeah.
Well, and you're the reason I got hired because you taught me into it coming to
How crazy is that?
Well, what I was going to say earlier, and I forgot when you were talking about the stuff you guys look for now, like salary and days off. Dude, I remember when I was looking at it, I mean, it was hard to even get, an opportunity to test with a department. You just kind of went where they were hiring, man. And I remember applying at Brentwood, I looked at Metro, and I looked at Smyrna, and I didn't even know anything about the Franklin PD until I met you, because I just never saw anything about it. When I was out in San Diego, I put in with Brentwood and Metro, and just because I knew that area. But so yeah, I didn't plan on doing it either, but I missed the brotherhood of the military and thought, man, I want to go back and be a trainer. Lo and behold, I'm a trainer again. But yeah, I never grew up thinking I'd ever be a cop. It never interested me.
Me neither.
Yeah, and I know you did.
Yeah, let alone be a cop in two cities you've never lived in your life.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
yeah.
Like you have to learn everything about this city, the roads,
Yeah.
the people, their culture, how they talk.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything.
Mississippi is a tough one to jump into. I did a lot of business in Mississippi, and that was the first time I went. I was like, why is everybody was dressed the exact same? They all had on like those fishing shirts with like the vest
Oh,
in
yeah.
the back and a baseball
Yeah.
hat, and they were all wearing the same exact boots. And I'm like, I stick out like a sore thumb. I felt so
Yeah.
weird. And then you don't understand anything they say, especially where
No.
I was like right off the river.
You really don't.
I'm like, what?
My very first call, this lady was complaining because people were stealing pecans in her front yard, and I couldn't understand her. And I was standing on them. And my training officer said, well, what do you think of that call? I said, I don't have a clue what she said. And he goes, she's mad because people come into her yard and steal the pecans when they fall from the tree. And I said, all right, so why'd she call us about that? He said, well, you were standing on all of them, so she was getting mad at you. I said, I had no idea. Yeah, I had
You
no
need your own
clue.
reality show, man. You need like a biography, like one of the. On
Yeah, I think what we need to do is write a book. I'm a great writer.
Yeah, there you
I
go.
think
Hey,
what
I'll
we
tell you
need
this.
to-
That's what people say. They're like, we need to write a book about your life. I said,
Yeah.
I mean, I have a lot more stories that I just haven't shared, but they're pretty wild ones.
We call it $40 pecans and a prayer.
There you go. There you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
But we would have to
What,
start from in Baghdad. Shit. We got kidnapped in Baghdad. Well, not in Baghdad, in Qatar.
Huh.
You got
Yeah,
kidnapped?
yeah. So listen to this. So we went to, we got 3 days R&R, right? Because we were only there. We were in Iraq for 7 months, so you only get 3 days R&R. But if you're like in the army, those guys had to do like 18 months, so they would get, I don't know, like a week or 2 weeks, something like that.
Yeah.
But for us, they were like, you can go to this this beach resort on the Persian Gulf in Qatar. So we were like, all right, yeah, we'll do that. So we go there, and some of the dudes I was with, they were like, hey, let's get some prostitutes. I'm thinking, oh, God, that sounds like a terrible idea. So they go into Doha, and because this taxi driver's like, yeah, I know some, blah, blah, blah. Well, they come back with some old, like, not very pretty Korean women. And I'm like, what the fuck? So I'm sitting there at the bar, and in comes this guy with all these dudes with him. So I'm like, he must be something. Well, he was a sheik. And I guess sheiks are a pretty big deal over there. And, like, they have, like, I guess law enforcement powers. I don't know. But I told him what was going on, and he goes, oh, very bad, very bad. They must go now. You cannot have it. It's illegal in our country. I said, oh, damn. So I told my buddies, I'm like, don't pay them, don't have sex with them, get rid of those chicks right now. So unfortunately, one of our guys, he was this little black guy named Jonesy. He was already knee deep in it. So we had to save his ass from that one. And then she tried to rob him because she didn't get paid. So then the sheik's like, do you guys want to come to my chalet? And I was like, well, I guess, because it's free alcohol. You don't have to buy it. So it's me, this dude named Ghoul. He's like 6'3" redhead. So he really didn't fit in. And then this Hispanic dude, we call him Jefe. I don't know his name. And Jonesy. And then some dude from the Navy. I can't remember his name either. But anyways, they fucking locked us in there. And the sheik sat on the couch next to Jones, in the middle of Jones and Jefe, and he was rubbing their thighs. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? So the other dudes with him, they were bodyguards. So they weren't letting us leave. So I don't know why I thought this. I said, fuck it, we need to start doing shots. We're going to get that sheik drunk and passed out so we can get the fuck out of here. And it actually worked.
Wow.
Yeah, kidnapped and cut her. Not
Look at
good.
you taking initiative as a young Marine.
I did. I said, start feeding that dude shots. We got to get the fuck out of here.
That's hilarious.
Because we were trapped.
That's hilarious.
It's just wild.
It's like,
So
it's like a
that's the
weird
moral of the
Sears
story. Don't buy Korean prostitutes in Qatar.
That's funny.
That's a good moral.
What
Yeah.
what advice do you have for veterans out there that might be struggling with PTSD or childhood trauma that don't have maybe the courage to seek out and ask for help, or don't have the resources available, that aren't in law enforcement or any kind of first responder role, or don't have access to something? What would you recommend, or what?
So if you're a veteran, you can always call the VA hotline.
right,
And you can ask for help there. And you're going to get somebody, and I can't tell you where they're going to be in America. They may be in your area, but what they can do is they can refer you to people.
Yeah.
And you got to get in the VA system. I know the VA health system can be a pain in the butt, but by getting in it, they can get you the access to the help that you need. And that's something that you really have to do.
What about like a local resource? Maybe like, do you know of any like support groups that meet, kind of like an AA, but for
I really don't.
that kind of thing? Okay.
I don't.
Do you? I mean, I've definitely, just talking to you tonight, I can tell you're, this is a compliment, dude. Don't think it's the wrong way, but like you're at a different level than when I last really hung out with you, and mentally, emotionally, spiritually. So do you have for yourself? Do you have like a morning routine that you do? Do you have maybe like a book you would recommend, or stuff you can do on your own versus maybe calling just a hotline, which is important.
Yeah.
Some things to do on your own.
So I think something that really changed my perspective on stuff was, and they had a movie on this too. So if you don't like reading books, you can watch the movie. But it's called The Secret.
Yeah.
Y'all heard of that? There you go. I brought it.
We did.
There you go.
Just talked about it.
So let me tell you about this. I can tell you a personal experience. So every year we go to Naples and we fly down there for Thanksgiving. And I brought it with me last time, and I read the portion that was the secret to money. So I was like, what could I do to have more financial success? Okay. Since I've read that, I've gone up tens of thousands of dollars in my yearly income from reading that.
Really?
Yes. Like, no kidding.
You selling shoes out of the car in the back lot, or how you doing?
I'm absolutely not. Hey, I'm selling Violene, Morris.
Oh God, I forgot about Violene, dude. I forgot about that. Oh, I forgot about the pyramid scheme. I forgot about that. Dude, I could have blamed.
Huh?
I could have blamed all that stuff that happened to me on your supplements. They made me crazy, man.
But
This is Violene made me do it.
The secret really opens your mind to like what is out there. And you're like, oh damn, if I did this and I did this, then this could work out. So you got to take chances. And that's where I think we fail in humanity. We just don't take chances, and we're not positive. It's so easy to be negative.
Yeah.
So when you're positive that becomes contagious. And the people that want that positivity, they'll stick around. The negative ones will go off and they'll continue that, and that's all they're going to attract is negativity. And they're going to be in the dumps. So
Yeah.
that's something. And then don't procrastinate. Procrastination, all it does is slow you down, and you're going to miss opportunities. You have to go after stuff. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
And then
Very solid.
finally, you got to give back. If you give back, you'll get stuff in return tenfold. I truly believe that.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
And then there's more to it. I'm not done yet. Also, this book, Conversational Intelligence. Super, super good book. So I'll give you an example. I made an assumption about somebody, and I held on to that for 4 years. Okay? So I read this book, and it kind of explains the importance of conversations and how to have a real meaningful conversation. So I brought up to this person, I got to a point where I'm like, hey, I have to get this off my chest. And I did. And the person told me that I've been wrong for 4 years. My assumption was completely wrong, but I didn't have the courage to have that conversation with them. So I had that hanging on, or that weight on me for that long, and it turns out it was for no reason.
Wow.
So yeah, I would definitely recommend Conversational Intelligence. It's a pretty interesting book, and I don't really like to read. I get lost in reading, and I start to focus on other stuff, and I go all over the place. But that's a book that I could read, and I enjoyed it, and I really got a lot out of it.
Very cool.
And I'll tell you this, another good thing, go for walks.
Yeah.
Walks clear your mind. Walks will really allow you to think about stuff while you're taking in different, like, I don't know, the scenery, I guess. But you want to clear your mind, go for a walk. I promise you it works, and you're getting exercise, and it's all around a great thing.
No, that's awesome. I think it's interesting too. We just had some conversations with another guest that was saying a lot of the same things. You know, centering yourself and finding, working on, you know, like the secret of manifesting and finding inwardly what you want and then accepting it. And so it's interesting that that's 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
The same thing.
It's huge. It's huge. Because I'll tell you this. So I think it was in 2017, maybe 15, whatever. But I heard about Berry Farms being built.
Yeah.
And by then it was just 2-lane road, and it was dirt and farm. But these detectives were saying they talked to somebody in the Chamber of Commerce on a call, and they said that that's going to be the next Cool Springs. So I watched it, and I told my wife, I said, we need to put a business in there. It's going to explode. It's going to be huge. So we did. But we didn't have funding. So with my positive mindset, I said, screw it. Let's get some credit cards and write some checks off some credit cards, and we'll pay for this. You know, that's the worst damn financial thing you can ever do in your life.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Okay? So I did that on 8 credit cards.
Wow.
Not good. I made my money back in 3 years. Had everything paid off.
No.
We've owned the business for 7.5 years. So you got to take chances. If I was a procrastinator, I would have missed out on that.
Give a plug. Tell us what the business is called for those that don't
It's
know.
Artistry Salon South. It's a hair salon. I really don't have anything to do with it because I don't do hair or anything. I just pay the rent.
No,
But
that's
yeah.
incredible, and it proves the point of, you know, you see something, go for it, take the risk,
Yeah.
take the chance.
Most definitely.
I do think we live in a culture and society where everybody tends to lean towards the negative, and they kind of get empowered
Yeah.
once they're behind a keyboard, and then they forget that there's like a real life world out here where there's real life people.
It's too easy to be negative. It's hard to be positive, and it's hard to go after what you want. That's why so I wrote down a couple Instagram pages that are super good, in my opinion. So for business, this guy named Dan Martell. You ever heard of him,
Okay.
Steve?
Yep.
I think so. Yeah.
Awesome page. Then Lewis Howes, Howes.
Yeah.
Awesome positive thinking. Supplements, health, and whatnot, and what to take for your body would be Dr. James Dinnick. Super good page.
Cool.
And then if you realize, hey, I need to get in investing and understand the market hustle is a good page. All good
I like
stuff.
the Market Hustle a lot. I also like
Yeah.
this new page, Too Tough Nuts.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say that.
Well, yeah. I mean, obviously.
Yeah.
But when we're talking about like the positivity, or you need to hear something other than seeing WAP and some girl shaking her ass on Instagram or TikTok, this is a little bit better for you.
Yeah, for sure.
Just don't share
Better for
your
your
furry
mind.
pages with us.
Yeah, what's the furry page that you
I'll tell you, it's Central TN
I'll
first.
tell you.
Oh,
Scott, it's a real pleasure and honor to have you with us, man. And
thank you.
It's good for me, and I think it's positive. I've lived in this area for just a few years, and I feel like I've been here a long time. But the interactions that I've had with law enforcement in this area have probably been the best that I've
That's
had in the
good.
country. And I've been to all but 4 states, so I've seen law enforcement in a lot of areas.
Yeah.
So hats off to you guys, man. It truly reflects on the leadership, and you're part of that. So
Thank you. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
man, it's good catching up with you, dude. And you're one of the good ones, man. Like I've always respected you, and you're a solid guy. And it's funny you talk about your salon artistry. I'm in that parking lot at least 4 days a week because it's right down the street from me.
Yeah, you
On the
saw
dairy
me in my
farm all the
car.
time. Yeah, I did. Yeah. So,
Except I
it's
sold.
cool. Oh, you sold it? Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's cool to catch up, man, and kind of share some old stories I haven't thought about in a long time. But
Yeah, definitely.
yeah, I appreciate you taking time out, especially when you're working tonight, man. I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story and some good positive wisdom to kind of we can get out to other guys that may have backgrounds similar to both you and I and
Yeah.
being in the military, law enforcement, or whatever that.
well, and good perspective for people who maybe don't understand. There's
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Take the leap. Take the leap.
Yeah.
Talk to somebody, and you will not regret it. And you know what? Here's the other thing. If you talk to somebody that you're just not jiving with, it's okay to walk away and find somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Not everybody's going to be a good fit, but you have to try. So
I love it. Awesome, bro.
Cool.
Man, I appreciate you, and thanks for your service, bro.
thank you very much.